So, can we talk about something? Okay, so I saw something on Twitter the other day and I kind of wanted to talk to you guys about it because it really made me think, and there was a lot of stuff that happened in the Twitter world, and I just figured that this would be a fun conversation to bring onto my channel. So there is this new movie coming out called Turning Red. It is absolutely adorable from what I can tell. It is about a Chinese girl who lives in Canada. She discovers that she has the power to turn into a red panda whenever she gets excited. And from what I can tell, it's very much a coming of age story that has a very Chinese focus. And obviously the turning red thing is supposed to be, you know, a puberty thing, right? And so some early reviews came out and there was one reviewer who had a very, very interesting take, and I wanted to share it with you guys and talk about a lot of the things connected to it. So this guy's name is Sean O'Connell. He is a reviewer. He published a book called Release the Snyder Cut. There's more words there, I suppose, but it was a book that I think started a lot of the conversation around Snyder releasing the full cut of one of his movies that I don't care about. But anyway, this is what he said in his Twitter post advertising for his review on the website that he is a director on, by the way. He says, some Pixar films are for a universal audience. Turning Red is not. The target audience for this one feels very specific and very narrow. If you're in it, this might work well for you. I am not in it, and this was exhausting. Now, here's the thing. I don't know why an aging white man thinks that he needs to identify with every children's cartoon that comes out, but I think, I think that it's pretty normal to say that not every piece of children's media is going to appeal to everyone. In fact, I will start out this conversation by saying that I don't think everyone has to universally like everything. Some things are created for a very particular audience. And from what I can tell, Turning Red is very much a movie that is being made to especially reflect some of the experiences of young women, right? And so I don't necessarily think that that's a bad thing, and I don't get why that has to be the issue, right? And I know that you could look at what he said here and not think much about it, but he said more in the review that made it clear kind of what his actual issues were. Let's get into it. So he says, by rooting Turning Red very specifically in the Asian community of Toronto, the film legitimately feels like it was made for Dom Shi's friends and immediate family members, which is fine, but also a tad limiting in its scope. Okay, so I'm sure y'all can already know where I'm gonna go with this, but you know, here's the thing. I grew up in a predominantly Chinese neighborhood, and I had friends who were of all racial backgrounds. I had friends who came from different areas of the world, and we all had things in common, even though we were so different. And personally, I love watching media about experiences that I don't have, about people living in countries that I've never visited, about people going through things that I've never experienced, because I just think that it's so interesting that we can all live on the same planet, but experience life so dramatically differently, right? And so I think it really says something when you watch a film about an Asian person and what you come away with it is that it was exhausting for you to empathize with these characters, right? Because that's not what I think of when I watch, honestly, any movie. And also, one of the things that I really thought when I saw this is just how frequently I, as a person of color, grew up watching things that were clearly not things that I directly identified with. I mean, a lot of media is created centering whiteness, centering white people, and people of color just kind of have to ignore the ways in which that's not reflective of who they are and enjoy it. And that's something that I think most people of color are used to doing, but I can tell by the reactions of a lot of white people to similar things like this, where they're just kind of upset that there's a person of color on screen because they don't identify with it, that a lot of white people don't really have that experience, right? They are so used to being given media that is reflective of who they are that they feel alienated when it's not. And that's interesting because people who are not white just kind of have to overlook the ways in which they don't directly identify with something and enjoy it. And it's so interesting to me because before Toy Story 4 came out, he did this poll of his top favorite Pixar movies. And you know, you'll notice a lot of the stories are about inanimate objects. And you have to go to the 7th one before you get to a story that centers a person of color's experience, right? Everything else is about, you know, robots, toys that become, you know, alive, rats who, you know, make soup in France, and a family that's super or whatever, you know? Like, these are all things that most people don't identify with, but they're still loved by a large range of people. And I just think it just says so much that just the very idea of a film about a Chinese girl in Toronto, you know, is like limiting in its scope because it's apparently supposed to appeal to only people who live in Dom Shi's neighborhood, apparently. I just think it's a very condescending thing to say. And it's interesting because in his review, he said that he thought that Mitchell versus Machines was a story that was identifiable to a universal audience. And I wonder what it is that, you know, makes it more universal than Turning Red. You know, for the record, I haven't seen either of these films. I haven't seen either of these movies. They might, you know, look, who knows? Maybe I'll come out of it being like, oh, it wasn't that great, which honestly, I feel that way about a lot of films people like, honestly. But I just think that he should have really thought about what he was saying before he says it. And listen, I want to be clear. I don't necessarily think that this reviewer is like some terrible racist who needs to be canceled or anything like that. But I think it's a thing that he said without being even remotely aware of his bias, right? And I think that that's unfortunately how a lot of racism functions, right? Where people sort of just do these things and deny certain things because they don't identify with it. Not, you know, intentional bigotry per se, but it is a reflection of the society we live in, which is often centered on whiteness. So I just thought that I would share that with you guys. I would love to hear what you guys have to say about this because, you know, for me, it just seems like a thing that didn't need to be said. And in fact, he did actually end up deleting the review and the tweet and apologizing, kind of. He sort of gave, you know, an apology, I guess. But of course, there's people in the comment section who feel like he shouldn't have been strong-armed into making an apology that he didn't probably need to make in some people's opinions. But I guess in a way it is kind of nice that he sat with it more and thought about it more and decided that he didn't want to have that out there. But a lot of times when people delete stuff like this, I feel like they're just deleting things to cover their butt as opposed to actually changing their feelings about this. Anyway, that is what I wanted to say, and I wanted to see what you guys said, so please be sure to give me your thoughts in the comment box below. And on that note, I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!